the screener on the chart page right here, as that is really where the core of the analysis is going to take place. And by and large, we can get the most data from this page. We're going to get the most effectiveness from this page here as well. So I want to show you just a few additional tweaks here that you can make to customize this bottom screener piece. Number one, just to reiterate, if we click on the filters area, again, going back to Discord, if we open up the Discord channel and you go to the screeners page, I'm going to have to refresh this page and see if I can get that to load. There we go. Let's jump over to screens right here. And on the screens page, when we look at the, come on, there we go. I've lost my train of thought now. Let's see. Let's come back here on this page. So we're talking about these filters right here. We come back to the Discord page and we go to screens. The screens on the chart, the screener on the chart, these pieces right here, those are going to give you the initial criteria for muscle stocks. It's going to give you this setting here. Now this setting, when you're clicking on the chart, is this piece right here where it says filters. So you're going to click on this filters piece, and that is where your settings are going to be. I want to show you just a couple of different things that you can add in here. Number one, we talked about where we get some stocks that have had buyouts and they have spiked higher, and then you just get those 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 dots for that day on the chart. If you want to avoid those or get rid of those, which I'd like to, they kind of bug me and I just want them out of the way. One of the ways that I found to be able to do that is just adding in a percent change, a very small 0.5, 0.4, something like that, a 0.5%, something like that. For the most part, most stocks are moving more than that, but if they're not, so what this is saying is it's moving, it has to be a stock that has moved above 0.5%. So if it hasn't moved at least 0.5%, chances are it's one of those buyout stocks, and so we can get rid of, it will just not include those. So if we take a look here, oops, let me get rid of my, oh, there we go. And then we can start out with, if we have a high RSI, then we're starting with that number. Now, again, on this setting right here, the new buy setting, there's a couple other things that I want to focus on too. So on the new buy setting, I've just changed these for muscle stocks. Now the settings are slightly different. There's new buy, there's buy, and then there's new buy all. Okay, remember that the muscle stocks group, or the new buy, the muscle stocks group, we're looking for stocks that have that are above 3, that have the CCI 20 above 40, and the 2200 are above each other as well. And then performance is 25%. Now there's no trigger on this. When we add in the new buys, it's basically taking all of those same criteria, but it's changing this one setting to crosses up. So instead of it already being above this number where it says above, it just says it's crossing up. So it's actually early and entering into that trend. And you'll notice that number now is 9. So we have 9 stocks today in that group. We have 227 that are already buy signals and already in uptrends. Okay, let's take a look and see if, okay, here's an example. There's an example where it didn't, well, I don't know if I actually have that in there. So there's an example. I didn't include that little filter to exclude some of those. That one, we could do that as well. So you could add some of those in if they're showing up. Now, this is an example of the way the muscle stocks screen may look, and that is, these are stocks that are already moving higher, versus the new buy of the muscle stocks is just going to pick up right here. It's going to pick up that stock when it transitions from this hold state, or this transition state, which is yellow, back into the buy. So again, if you had any confusion on that, that's just simply, we're looking for the 2 different groups. Ideally, we want the actual new buys for our filter criteria to be able to look for something to trade today. For example, at RDW, we've got a lot of these that are working really nice, or they're taking off, and these will end up being new buys, at the end of the day. The cool thing is it actually is doing this during the day as well. So if you want to try and pick up some of these trades before the end of the day, or it's entering, instead of, typically we're focused on end of day than pre-market. We'll set up the order and then enter that in pre-market. So just a couple of additional ideas. The other piece over here, I've had some questions regarding rank. Really, the rank on the old TradersPro software is based on performance. Okay, price performance only. It's a combination of the last 12 months with the most recent quarter being the most heavily weighted. So one of the ways to be able to essentially replicate that is on these tabs right here. You'll notice these little drop down, these 3 dots. You can click on those, and then that gives you a bunch of different choices. When you add those in and save those, you can actually save them. It saves that setting over here on this side. Okay, so I've got TradersPro. This is the default setting that I want. I want the RSI 14. I want the rating. I want the price. I want the change, volume, sector, and industry. That's really all I want. Okay, and then the default sort is by RSI. So that's the saved setting for new buys. And here, this is what it's going to be looking for. And this is exactly what we would want to try and find out of this scan as a stock just like this. Uptrend already, relatively early in the trend. Ideally, we've got compression on the 60-minute. Which none of the screens are going to look for that, but this pattern typically will have this same look. So it's kind of sometimes it's a nice just clarification. You'll kind of get in this comfort zone where you're seeing this. Does it look like this and this at the same time or early into that? And you have compression. It just gives additional confirmation and a little bit different perspective. Remember, we're just looking at price. Price is all there is, and we're just putting it in a format that allows us to create some structure around our decision making at some point. Ideally, we want certain characteristics. That's why we're using these filters, because we want these kind of stocks just like that. That's the characteristic of the kind of stock we want to be able to filter for. And then from there, it gives us an actionable location in a moving stock. And a lot of times, because of the performance, it's already moving nicely because there's a lot of eyeballs on a stock like this, Redwire, and some of these other stocks that are dealing with drones and space and satellites and a lot of different things regarding that, particularly with the inaugural speech yesterday, kind of leaning towards that, saying we're going to get a guy on Mars, and so all of these space stock related stocks are having big moves today. But they were already set up in that pattern, but now they're entering into this screen. Here's another example. Okay, you're getting confirmation, big volume, increasing into the momentum zone, LUNR, another nice pattern. Okay, uptrend, confirmation bar. Here's our increased volume. Okay, so these are going to be the stocks, and if they close at these levels, obviously they may not, but if they do, then this will be the stocks that we're analyzing going into tomorrow. Okay, but one of the other things we can add is if you want to add a performance. So this performance piece it's actually already in there. It's kind of a default. If you check the star button right here, it's going to add that to that. So if I just check or uncheck this star button, it's going to add those criteria. So from here, now I've got my initial screen criteria, which are these filters here, and I've got some additional, they're not really filters, but we can use them now as a sorting mechanism, as a sorting tool. The default, now watch if I change this. Now remember what I mentioned, the last 3 months performance, the rank is based on that heavily. So if we were to just sort that by the last 3 months performance, you're going to get the same stocks, obviously, but they're going to sort just slightly different. This actually becomes even more effective when we use one of these other settings. Now notice what it did right here. It wants me to save it again, because now if I were to save it and I will go back to this as a default, it's going to set me into this performance, and it's going to set me here. So if you're doing that and you're like, I want to follow some of these for a length of time, then save that. And you simply go here and do a save as, and then just save it. Name it what it was before. If you name it something new, it's going to add a new additional drop down or additional name in that drop down. Okay, so I've got the screen settings, which are my filters. I've got 3 months performance, and you could go out here as well and say 6 months or year to date or even a yearly performance. Some of those are going to have, pretty massive performance, and that's okay. If they're up 100, 200, 300%, they potentially could turn into these 5, 6, 700 percenters as they really rocket and move it higher. But the more realistic we want to have in the last 3 months, because this is the last 3 months. This is what that pattern is essentially going to look like. When we have 3 months performance, we get this uptrend. We get a retracement. We're getting a lot of volume coming in, and this is overall what we want. We want this expansion moving higher, and as we continue to participate, at some point, we're taking gains. We're using a stop loss, but this is the initial setup that we want to be able to utilize. So instead of using rank, there's actually a lot more settings that we can utilize here as well. Again, in rank before was always just performance rank. It's not including fundamentals. It's not including anything. It's just the price performance rank. So there's some easy ways that we can kind of bypass that and actually give us a whole bunch more filtering mechanisms and I should say sorting mechanism now, because now we've got our filter. These are looking for the criteria of those stocks. Again, the criteria are listed here, and from there we can sort them into some additional different criteria to add for different things. So we could add EPS growth here as well and say I want and I've been testing these a little bit and playing around with some of these. I probably won't keep these exactly like this, but there's some other ideas now to say, all right, which ones, still same names, but we're getting just a little bit different sort. So maybe I look at PL, Planet Labs, okay, massive volume, nice confirmation move, and some additional fundamentals. So from there, you could even go in and take it. One of the quick ways to glance right here is this metrics box, and just click on financials, and that's going to pull up this number right here. So then you could quickly, if you are a balance sheet, spreadsheet kind of guy or gal, then this will quickly get you to that location where you can glance at some of those fundamentals, and then it's just a little pop-up right here. You can look at some of those other things as well. So your financials, and these buttons right here, you've got your overview. So you can go through and take a look just at some basic fundamental information regarding earnings, okay, and some of the trends of earnings. That matters, okay? We talked about momentum and the kinds of stocks. Now, in early momentum type stocks or aggressively momentum, it's still about price action, because they could, investors could be anticipating the price move or the company to grow and actually start making money. Like a lot of these companies are not even close to making money or being really profitable, but the stocks are moving higher because the market is anticipating that these new technology or areas of growth are going to grow and there will be big demand, and then the company will be making money. It's an auction. We're dealing with an auction, and people are now anticipating. And obviously, we know that auction runs too high. We get too much greed, it retraces, it comes back down. So sometimes the overall fundamentals, they're kind of irrelevant sometimes, because everybody's basing decisions already on the fundamentals if they're fundamentally oriented. If not, and they're just looking for trend and momentum, then they're not looking at those fundamentals anyway. Where the fundamentals really ultimately come into play are when you're looking at like legitimate long-term growth, where maybe RDW is just barely entering in this massive growth cycle for the next 2 years, yet they're not profitable quite yet, or they're going to be, and then those earnings, once they really start making money, for example, let's look at Nvidia. Okay, so Nvidia, we know that these guys are making money, and so you have financials and fundamentals and earnings that are all continuing to grow here. Okay, so you're getting green really across the board. They are making money, but a company doesn't necessarily have to make money in the shorter term for the stock to go higher. In the longer term, it does. It absolutely has to, and those become the really long-term, fantastic trades, like AppLovin, that we've looked at and traded a couple of different times this year. Okay, if we were to look at this chart on a weekly time frame, okay, it's just absolutely gone parabolic for a really long time, all the way back down here in the 20s, and all the way back here was only last year. Okay, this was June of, not even last year, this was June of 2023. So I guess it was a year and a half ago, from 26 to 400. These guys they're in the app business and the app monetization area, and they are making a lot of money. So, and they continue to do so. So those stocks, when they are profitable, they really do matter, and they really start to show up in these scans anyway, but these are going to be in some of those muscle stock groups as well. So let me jump back here. I kind of wanted to focus primarily just on this page a little bit more today, and particularly the bottom part right here, because jumping back and forth, you've also got this other feature right here. Let me grab this and go over to this screener. Okay, so we've got this setup, this perspective as well on muscle stocks, which is also nice because you can add this the chart over top of it and just get a quick idea. Remember, you want to go out to that 6-month time frame, and here's an example too. We could probably add that percentage change on this one and get rid of some of these names, but these are going to be your muscle stock group, and those are this trending higher, trending higher, trending higher, and then we want to look for a signal. But from here to actually looking at this chart, they're just different, a little slightly different perspective. Sometimes this one's nice too because you can scroll through and just quickly glance and look to see, oh, there's a confirmation bar. Okay, is there any other confirmation bars? Not yet, but if I were to go in and I were to look at the new buys, then this is going to have really that 9 stocks that we were looking at over here, down here at this bottom, is going to match up here as well. So there's RDW, here's CLPT, LUNR, Rocket Labs, not all really nice looking patterns. Okay, these, if we were to look at this and say this uptrend confirmation bar, uptrend countertrend confirmation bar, uptrend countertrend confirmation, okay, that's what we're looking for. That's what this screen is looking for. That's the characteristic of the kind of stock that we want to look for, and the exact setup and the exact setting as well. Okay, the confirmation bars, the uptrends, the strength of the overall price pattern as well. Now this is the core setting. From here you can filter in additional things if you want more filtering. Okay, you may not need more filtering. This has essentially got everything that we're already looking for. But if you want more filtering based on, whatever, then you can add that. For example, just the new buy signal alone has filtered everything down to 9. It's not a ton, but they're nice looking patterns right here as well. Market, I think, decided to be relatively flat here. Yeah, it's still up a little bit on the day, running into some resistance right here for S&P 500. So just to kind of recap what we went over, remember that your screener, the core function of the screener, the core screener, I should say, is down here at the bottom. So if you're lost on where that is, obviously just click that open. Here it is. Now you've got your filter. What is my filter? Well, what are my settings? Well, I'm going to go into Discord and I'm going to look to see screener on the chart, muscle stocks, new buys, and then from there, the reason why we've got just these 2 is because you can add in from there anything you want. Okay, you could add some of the things, and that's one of the other things we talked about doing. Is let's say that I have let's say I have muscle stocks. Let's see if any of those muscle stocks are in the S&P 500. So I can click on index, and I can go. Let's just go down to S&P 500. Right here, that didn't add it in. Let me get rid of this. Let's just come down like this. S&P 500. Okay, there we go. So S&P 500. Okay, now 17 of those stocks in the muscle stocks group are in the S&P 500. So we can scroll through and look to see if we have anything interesting here. Now we know that, 17 stocks that are really strong muscle stocks in the S&P 500 is not a lot, but these are the leading stocks and these are the ones that are continuing to move higher. I can do the same thing. Now again, that wants me to save it. Why? Because I added additional condition. I added the S&P 500. If I want to get rid of that, I just click on that little circular arrow guy, and this thing is now moving back to that 231 number here as well. Okay, now it's back to my save settings also. I could also go to buy. Now the difference between just the buy signal is that we don't have any moving averages. We're not looking for the overall trend to be up. We're just flat out looking for a stock that has this as its signal. It's moved up above that 45 number. That's going to be a lot of stocks. That's 1,400 stocks. So of the 1,400 stocks, if I were to click back on here and I were to go back to the S&P 500, okay, now I've got 288 stocks that have buy signals. So we're just about back to, a buy-sell ratio of 1. Okay, there's 500 stocks. We're more than half now back to the upside. At least the buy criteria based on our methodology, okay, that is looking for that CCI 20. So you're going to get technical ratings. These are all typically going to be relatively close or also in buy signals. And that's one of the ways to filter on the core filter is just saying, I want to look for S&P 500 stocks, or I want to look for whatever it is, and you can add that into this area here. Or I could say I only want to look for these new buy stocks that are in a certain sector or industry. If I click on this industry, see if Aerospace and Defense, okay, of the Aerospace and Defense. So now you'll notice the only stocks that are in this are Aerospace and Defense. And now I can do the same thing. I can sort it by this, just like we've done. Not changing a thing, but now we're getting these kind of setups, 37 of those setups, and we know that these are the Aerospace and Defense stocks. So my strongest stocks based on price activity, RSI here, okay, that's 84, 78. You can see that's going down. That's filtered by that number. Okay, now I could do the same thing if I wanted to go. Now again, it wants me to save it. I'm not going to save it, but if I go back to new buys and I try and do the same thing, I want to add in a filter. I want to add an industry, Aerospace and Defense. Okay, these three names. These are the Rocket Labs, Redwire, space technology companies having nice moves today here as well. So that's a quick way to be able to stay on the same page, okay, stay on the same chart, and then just quickly make a couple of different eyeball changes based on what you might be looking for here as well. One other thing that you can do without changing that filter, if you're curious of are there a group of stocks in that sector, is just simply click on this one and sort it by sector and then scroll down and say, oh, which ones are in there. The other thing you can do, which is nice, is this button right here. I can export that and it's going to take it directly to my Excel file, and then I can click on this and open this up here as well. Let me see. That might be one that is already open. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Let me just move this over here as well. So if you like that, sometimes I like to just export that and look at them just a little bit differently. It's giving me all of that criteria here as well. And then I can say, okay, these guys are in Aerospace Defense, and that's kind of the core group that are getting new buys today. So, really in this entire session so far, we've gone 20 minutes and we went through, multiple settings right there. Once you kind of get the hang of that, you're going to be able to sorry, I've got all these open. You're going to be able to cruise through these pretty quickly. And that's part of, the user interface and getting comfortable is just a lot of use and just, trying different things. And I want to just give you more and more of these different ideas to speed up the process, especially the filtering process, the sorting process, what you're looking for, so that you can get there. We can look at the information. We can know right what we're looking for. And then we can come in and make some decisions. Ideally, what we want here is we want these to be at a decision-making point, okay? That's one of the reasons we're kind of going away from more and more watch lists, are because we just want to focus on the screens. What is actionable right now? What is actionable today based on these criteria? Then I don't need to have 500 stocks that I'm sorting through and I'm waiting and I'm trying to get a signal on those. Just simply use the filter already based on the criteria that we're looking for, and let the filter do the filtering for you. Let it do the screening for you, so that you don't have to have 15 different watch lists and stocks strung from hell to breakfast all over the place, and then getting lost. And what am I looking for? What am I focused on? This should help with that process. Just kind of tighten up the overall analysis and then utilize this tool in a way that is really efficient. That's really what we want. That's the whole point of these tools, is to create efficiency. We want speed. We want to look for and find what we know we're looking for. We know we have certain criteria, and you can always change these criteria. If you have a skill set that you're bringing in as you're learning and understanding this methodology, and you're like, I've had a lot of success with XYZ kind of names that have had XYZ kind of criteria, add those in, and see how they work inside of this methodology as well. Maybe they're filtering up, or you're looking for a certain setup. You can have a lot of different saves in here as well. But for the most part, just keeping it very simple. Here's our new buy. This is the muscle stock group. Based on the signal, we talked about that. There's no trigger on this. It's just above that line. And then from there, we can go through and say, well, which ones, based on performance, maybe I want of the muscle stocks group, I want to look at that performance, that 3-month performance chart here. And now I'm getting SPCB. That's a big mover right here. Okay, this is one of those stocks that's already moving. It's a muscle stock group list, and potentially there's a pullback. Right back here would have been an area, if we were looking for that chart, probably would have showed up in these scans right here as well. Say, okay, this has had a big pop. Now it's pausing, consolidating. We want a confirmation bar. Not now, but back at this point in time, we could be looking for some of these as well. So sometimes they will have moved already and they're deep into that trend, but other times we can find something that may be set up just a little bit right here. If it's had a yellow before green right here, then it will show up in this new buy scan right here. Okay, that's what it's looking for. So now we're back to our 9. We're still sorting by our 3 months. And now we've got this move here. This is a strong enough move that it actually just bypassed that transition zone and went directly from downtrend to uptrend without any kind of transition. That's fine too. It'll still pull it in because it's based on that price entry above a certain area, and it's getting that confirmation. But most of the time it's going to look like that. You're going to get yellow before red transitioning as it's moving into that overall uptrend. So a little bit more training specific on this area, which is really the core, trading display or chart display. That I'm using to be able to look for these, get a little confirmation with some internal price activity, the 1 hour, I should say intraday price activity here as well. Although bottom line, we're just still looking for this pattern. This is going to help us look for those. It's going to help us with a little bit of additional criteria on the sorting. And now we can do it relatively quickly. As we're looking through some of these things, you can add that EPS in, add anything, add everything. Okay, it's just so we've got your core mechanism, but then you've also got some additional things that you could go in and review from there. That's going to do it for today's update. Everyone have a fantastic day today.